Maya Thompson, a 28-year-old Black American woman, stood on the crowded Chicago pier, her deep brown skin catching the late afternoon sun as she gripped a small, weathered suitcase. The air buzzed with the chatter of vacationers and the distant squawk of seagulls, but her eyes were fixed on the towering luxury cruise ship ahead, its sleek white hull gleaming like a promise of escape. The ticket in her pocket, a prize from a local radio contest, felt like a miracle, a rare chance to step away from the relentless grind of her life. As a retail worker, scraping by in a cramped apartment, with overdue rent notices and endless job applications yielding nothing, Maya had never dreamed she could afford such a journey. Yet here she was, heart pounding with a mix of exhilaration and nerves, ready to board a vessel that promised starry nights, fine dining, and a glimpse of a world she'd only seen in glossy brochures. The pier was a whirlwind of activity. Families lugged matching luggage sets, their voices excitedly bright, while others snapped selfies against the ship's imposing silhouette. With her single suitcase and a borrowed sundress tucked inside, Maya felt a pang of self-consciousness. Her life in Chicago's South Side had been one of resilience, raised by a single mother who worked double shifts as a seamstress. Maya had learned to stretch every dollar and seize every opportunity. At 28, her warm, expressive face carried determination and weariness, her tightly coiled hair pulled into a neat bun that framed her features. She paused to take in the ship's grandeur, its decks rising like a floating palace. Her hands, slightly clammy around the suitcase handle, betrayed her anxiety, but her mother's words echoed in her mind. Seize every chance to dream big, Maya. You're worth it. Stepping aboard, Maya was greeted by a crew member, a young man with a gracious smile, who offered her a brightly colored drink adorned with a tiny umbrella. The sweet scent of tropical fruit wafted up as she accepted it, her complete lips curving into a cautious grin. "Welcome aboard, ma'am," the attendant said, with a bow directing her to the reception area. Maya thanked him, her voice soft but steady, and went down a long corridor to her cabin. The space was modest, a single bed, a small porthole revealing the endless glitter of ocean waves, and just enough room to maneuver her suitcase. Compared to the sprawling suites she'd glimpsed on her way, it felt tiny, but clean and tidy, more than she'd ever expected. She unpacked her few belongings, a couple of outfits, a worn paperback, and a photo of her mother, whose dark skin and bright smile mirrored her own feeling, a flicker of gratitude. This was her chance to breathe, to step out of her struggles, if only for a few days. After settling in, Maya ventured to an open deck where the late afternoon sky melted into hues of orange and pink. Leaning against the railing, she let the cool sea breeze play with her hair, loosening a few curls from her bun. The horizon stretched endlessly before her, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to exhale deeply. Life had been a treadmill of survival, long shifts at the store dodging her landlord's calls and the sting of rejection from job interviews. The ticket felt like a gift from the universe, a sign that her fortunes might shift. Maybe she thought she'd explore the ship's cocktail bars tonight, the ones she'd read about in the brochure with their velvet seats and sparkling chandeliers. Maybe she'd dance under the stars, letting go of the weight she carried. Her dark eyes sparkled with possibility as she imagined stepping out of her comfort zone, leaving her worries behind, if only for a moment. Maya's thoughts drifted to the future as the ship prepared to sail. She didn't know that somewhere on this vessel, James Carter, a 32-year-old white American billionaire with pale skin and striking blue eyes, was also seeking an escape from his world of corporate pressures and guarded secrets. Their paths were destined to cross, setting in motion a journey that would change her life forever. For now, though, Maya stood alone, her heart swelling with cautious hope, ready to embrace whatever this cruise might bring. The cruise's first official party pulsed with energy, transforming the main deck into a Caribbean-themed spectacle. Steel drums echoed through the warm night air, their rhythms blending with the upbeat beats of a DJ spinning reggae and soca. Flamboyant decorations, strings of fairy lights, palm fronds, and vibrant hibiscus garlands cast a festive glow over the crowd. Maya Thompson, wearing a borrowed sundress that hugged her curves, stepped into the lively scene, her heart fluttering uncertainly. The elegant guests twirling on the dance floor, their designer outfits catching the light, made her feel like an outsider. She had no dance partner or group of friends to anchor her, and a wave of self-consciousness crept up as she lingered near the crowd's edge. Yet the music's infectious pulse beckoned, urging her to let go of her doubts. Maya closed her eyes, letting the rhythm guide her. She swayed gently, her body loosening as the vibrant lights swirled around her. The moment felt like a small rebellion against the weight of her Chicago life bills, job rejections, and the constant hustle. For once, she wanted to lose herself in the joy of the night. As she moved, a gentle voice broke through the music's hum. "May I join you?" it asked, warm and curious. She turned to see a strikingly handsome man, his blue eyes bright with interest, and a faint smile on his lips. He introduced himself as James Carter, extending a polite hand to lead her to the heart of the dance floor. Maya felt gratitude and shy excitement, her pulse quickening at the instant spark of attraction. James's steps were confident, yet unforced, his movements syncing effortlessly with hers. He didn't show off or overwhelm her, instead matching her pace, guiding her gently to ensure her comfort. His tailored shirt hinted at a polished life, but his easy laugh and attentive gaze made him feel approachable. As they danced, Maya caught him studying her face, as if memorizing her features. Their conversation flowed as naturally as their steps, starting with light banter about the music. "You like reggae?" James asked, his voice warm over the drums. Maya grinned, confessing she'd grown up dancing to her mother's old Bob Marley records. He seemed genuinely fascinated, sharing that he loved jazz, but had a soft spot for Caribbean beats. When Maya asked how he ended up on the cruise, she admitted with a bashful smile that she'd won her ticket in a contest. James's eyes lit up. "That's incredible," he said, his tone almost envious. "You're lucky to be here on pure chance." When she probed about his reasons for being aboard, he grew vague, mentioning that he traveled a lot for work and needed a break. His cryptic responses piqued her curiosity, but his kindness kept her at ease. After the dance set ended, the music grew too loud for deeper talk, and they slipped away to a quieter deck, the moon hanging like a pearl over the rippling ocean. Leaning against the railing, Maya felt the tremendous breeze tug at her curls, while James stood close, his shoulder nearly brushing hers. They joked about the party's energy-swapping stories of quirky moments, like a guest's failed attempt at limbo that left the crowd roaring with laughter. As Maya brushed a wayward strand of hair from her face, James reached out gently, tucking it behind her ear. The gesture felt intimate, sending a flutter through her stomach. She smiled so widely her cheeks ached, and he looked at her as if she were the only person on the ship, making her feel safe and special despite their brief acquaintance. They strolled along the deck, their footsteps soft against the hum of the ocean. Conversation flowed to books. They loved her Toni Morrison, him Hemingway, and dream destinations from Jamaica to Paris. Maya teased him for being tight-lipped about his life, and he chuckled, admitting he preferred to keep things simple. His discretion struck her as slightly mysterious, but his warm presence overshadowed any doubts. Near the lifeboats, away from prying eyes, the moonlight lent a dreamlike glow to the moment. James drew closer, the space between them shrinking until their lips met in a tender, breathless kiss. They pulled apart, eyes locking with mutual wonder, as if both sensed this was more than a fleeting shipboard flirtation. Returning to the main deck where the party thrummed, James promised to meet Maya for breakfast to explore more of the ship together. Her heart felt ready to burst as she said goodnight and retreated to her cabin. Sinking onto her bed, she replayed every detail, his whispered jokes, his comforting smile the glow of moonlight on his face. Exhausted, but overjoyed, she fell asleep dreaming of the days ahead, unaware that James's sudden absence would soon turn her joy into a desperate search for answers. The morning sun filtered through Maya Thompson's cabin porthole, casting a soft glow across her small bed. She woke earlier than usual, her mind buzzing with the memory of the previous night's dance with James Carter. His warm smile, the tender kiss under the moonlight, and the promise to meet for breakfast filled her with a giddy anticipation she hadn't felt in years. She slipped into a simple blouse and jeans, her curls pulled into a loose ponytail, and headed to the bustling breakfast hall, her eyes scanning the crowd for James's familiar silhouette. The clink of silverware and hum of conversation surrounded her, but as she moved from table to table, her heart sank. James was nowhere to be found. Determined not to let doubt creep in, Maya checked the pool deck where early risers lounged under striped umbrellas. The sparkling blue water and laughter of vacationers contrasted with her growing unease. She approached a bartender from the previous night's party, hoping he might recall James. Tall blue eyes, charming smile. She described her voice steady despite her nerves. The bartender, wiping down the counter, gave a thoughtful nod. "Maybe I saw someone like that." He said, his tone vague. "Paid with cash, left a big tip, but I don't know the names." His words offered a flicker of confirmation that James was honest, but no leads on his whereabouts. Maya thanked him, her fingers tightening around her purse as she moved on. Her search led her through the ship's winding corridors, the polished floors reflecting the overhead lights. She inquired at the reception desk, describing James as best she could, but the attendant offered only a polite shrug, citing privacy policies. Frustration gnawed at her, but she pressed forward, driven by the spark of their connection. Near the bar where they danced, she spotted something glinting on the floor. A gold wristband, heavier than it looked, engraved with the initials JC. Her pulse quickened as she turned it over in her hands, the metal cool against her skin. Was this James's? Had he dropped it during their dance, or left it behind? The discovery felt like a lifeline, a tangible link to the man who'd vanished without a trace. Maya's search grew more desperate. She ventured near restricted crew areas, where a crew-only sign loomed above a locked door. Tempted to peek inside, she hesitated only to be stopped by a stern security guard. He said, "This area's off-limits, ma'am." His tone firm, but not unkind safety reasons. Maya nodded, her cheeks flushing as she apologized, and backed away. But as she turned the corner, another guard appeared, eyeing her suspiciously and looking for someone. He asked, his voice sharp. "Just a friend," she replied, her breath catching. He grunted, stepping aside, but his gaze followed her, amplifying her sense of being watched. Why were they so guarded? Was James involved in something bigger than she realized? By midday, Maya had exhausted her options. She'd checked every common area, the lounge, the deck, even the gym, her hope fading with each empty glance. Standing on the open deck, she watched the horizon shift through gold and rose hues, the sea breeze carrying a slight chill. She wrapped her arms around herself and fought a sinking fear that James had vanished as swiftly as he'd appeared. The wristband tucked safely in her purse was her only proof of their encounter. She wondered if he'd gone ashore at the port where the ship had docked, or if he was avoiding her. The thought stung, but her gut insisted their connection was real, not a fleeting dream. As the loudspeaker announced the ship's departure for a tropical port, Maya lingered by the railings, watching passengers disembark in bright floral shirts and wide-brimmed hats. A steel drum band played on shore, welcoming tourists to vibrant markets and beaches. Usually she'd be thrilled to explore, but her mind was elsewhere. The wristband's JC pulsed with possibility. James Carter, she whispered to herself, clinging to the name. Should she join the excursion, hoping to spot him in the crowd or stay aboard, searching for more clues. Time was slipping away, and the ship's departure loomed. Maya took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. She wasn't ready to give up. Clutching the wristband, she vowed to find James before the cruise ended, unaware that his disappearance hid secrets far beyond her imagination. Maya Thompson sat on the edge of her worn couch in her Chicago apartment, the familiar scent of her mother's lavender candles mingling with the faint hum of city traffic outside. With its starry nights and fleeting romance, the cruise felt like a distant dream as she unpacked her small suitcase, the gold wristband engraved with JC now resting on her coffee table. Her return to reality was jarring unopened bills on the counter, a half-finished job application on her laptop, and the weight of her modest life pressing down. The memory of James Carter's warm smile and moonlit kiss lingered, but his sudden disappearance left a hollow ache. She tried to distract herself with laundry and music, but her thoughts drifted to that magical night, wondering if she'd imagined the spark between them. A week after returning, Maya woke to a wave of nausea that sent her stumbling to the bathroom. Kneeling on the cool tiles, she chalked it up to stress or something she ate. But the sickness persisted, joined by dizzy spells and crushing fatigue. Worry drove her to the local clinic by the third day, a small building with scuffed floors and a crowded waiting room. Her best friend Keisha, a nurse with a no-nonsense warmth, insisted on coming along, her presence a steady anchor. Sitting on the exam table, the paper crinkling beneath her, Maya answered the doctor's questions about her symptoms. Maya froze when the physician, a kind woman with graying hair, asked if pregnancy was possible. "It's not planned," she stammered, her mind flashing to James. The doctor nodded and ordered a test. After an agonizing wait, the doctor returned, her expression soft. "Maya, you're pregnant," she said. "And based on the ultrasound, you're carrying triplets." The words hit like a tidal wave. Maya's hands trembled as she clutched the ultrasound images, three tiny shapes barely discernible but undeniably real. Her chest tightened with a mix of fear, wonder, and panic. Triplets. How could she, living paycheck to paycheck, possibly care for 3 babies? Keisha squeezed her hand, sensing her spiral. "We'll figure it out, Maya," she whispered. "You're not alone." Back at her apartment, Maya stared at the ultrasound, imagining names. Maybe Ella, after her grandmother, or Marcus, after her late uncle. The thought of her children grounded her, but the absence of their father loomed large. Determined to find James, Maya turned to her laptop, her fingers flying across the keys. She typed James Carter Cruise into the search bar, sifting through irrelevant results until a headline caught her eye. James Carter acquires luxury liner for Carter Cruises expansion. The article described a reclusive billionaire who controlled a vast cruise empire, a man who shunned publicity. No photo accompanied the piece, but the initials, JC, matched the wristband. Her pulse raced. This had to be him. The man who'd danced with her and made her feel seen was a wealthy stranger who'd vanished without a trace. She emailed Carter Cruises, attaching scans of her ticket and referencing the party night, but automated replies offered no help. Frustration welled up, but the ultrasound images taped to her fridge fueled her resolve. Keisha stopped by that evening, bringing takeout and her signature blunt advice. Over fried plantains, Maya poured out her fears, raising 3 kids alone, the stigma of single motherhood, the mystery of James's disappearance. Keisha listened, her eyes fierce with loyalty. She said, "Those babies deserve to know their dad, and you deserve answers. Keep pushing. I see a lawyer who might help pro bono." Maya hugged her, grateful for her friend's support. As she lay in bed that night, the wristband glinting in the lamplight, she vowed to fight for her children. The road ahead was daunting: financial strain, societal judgment, and a man who seemed untouchable, but her babies were worth every struggle. She closed her eyes, clutching the ultrasound, determined to find James Carter, no matter the cost. Maya Thompson sat at her small kitchen table, the glow of her laptop casting shadows across the cramped Chicago apartment. The ultrasound images of her triplets taped to the fridge reminded her of the stakes driving her late-night searches. Weeks had passed since she discovered her pregnancy, and James Carter's identity as the billionaire owner of Carter Cruises. Her emails to the company detailing her encounter with James and attaching scans of her cruise ticket yielded only automated replies. "Thank you for your inquiry. We'll respond within 5 to 7 business days." None came. The gold wristband engraved with JC, now a constant companion in her purse, was her only tangible link to the man who'd vanished after their magical night. Frustration simmered, but the thought of her unborn children, whom she'd started calling Ella, Marcus, and Lila in her mind, kept her focused. Determined to break through, Maya visited Carter Cruises' headquarters in downtown Chicago. She dressed carefully in her best blazer and skirt, hoping to project confidence despite the nervous flutter in her chest. The towering glass building loomed over the city, its polished facade reflecting the morning sun. As she entered the lobby, the air smelled of expensive cologne and polished marble. Well-dressed professionals, primarily white, and moving with purposeful strides, filled the space, their briefcases and clipped conversations, starkly contrasting to Maya's modest reality. She felt the weight of their glances, a reminder of her outsider status in this world of wealth and power. A poised woman, with a tight smile at the reception desk, greeted her. "Good morning." Maya began, her voice steady. "I need to speak with James Carter about an urgent personal matter." The receptionist's brow arched slightly, her fingers pausing over the keyboard. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her tone polite but distant. Maya swallowed, her hands tightening around her purse. "No, but it's essential. I've tried emailing and I haven't heard back." The woman's smile didn't waver as she glanced at her screen. "Mr. Carter's schedule is complete and doesn't take unscheduled visits. I can direct you to our email address for general inquiries." She handed Maya a business card with a generic address, her attention shifting to the next person. Maya stepped aside, her cheeks burning with embarrassment and defiance. The card felt like another dead end, but she refused to give up. Back at her apartment, she called her best friend Keisha, whose voice crackled with indignation over the phone. "They're stonewalling you." "Maya," Keisha said, her nursing shift just ended. "You're a single black woman trying to reach a billionaire. They're not going to make it easy. But you've got those babies to fight for." Keisha's words hit home, echoing Maya's fears about the stigma she'd face as a single mother. She'd already noticed neighbors' sidelong glances when her pregnancy became harder to conceal, their whispers stinging with judgment. Keisha offered practical help, connecting Maya with a legal aid contact, Sarah, who specialized in family matters, and promised to guide her pro bono. Maya's thoughts drifted to her children as she tidied her apartment, folding a blanket her mother had sewn years ago. She imagined Ella, Marcus, and Lila growing up in a world where they'd need every advantage she could secure. Glinting on her table, the wristband symbolized more than James. It was proof of her resolve to give her kids a father who knew them. She tried another email to Carter Cruises, this time more insistent, referencing the wristband and their dance under the moonlight. Still no reply came. The corporate fortress seemed impenetrable, its gates guarded by layers of bureaucracy designed to keep people like her out. That evening, Keisha stopped by with coffee and a plan. She said, "There's a charity gala next week hosted by Carter Cruises," scrolling through a local news site on her phone. "James might be there. You could try to get in." Maya hesitated, daunted by the idea of crashing such an event, but Keisha's encouragement bolstered her. Keisha reminded her that "You're not just doing this for you," pointing to the ultrasound images. "Those babies deserve to know who their dad is, and you deserve answers." Maya nodded, her resolve hardening. The gala was a long shot, but it was a chance to breach the walls of James's world. Clutching the wristband, she vowed to face whatever came next, determined to fight for her children's future in a society quick to judge and slow to help. Maya Thompson stood on the sidewalk outside the Grand Chicago venue, hosting Carter Cruz's charity gala, her heart pounding as she adjusted the hem of a second-hand black gown. The dress found at a thrift store with Keisha's help flattered her figure, but felt foreign against her usual jeans and blouses. The ornate entrance glowed under floodlights, a gleaming banner proclaiming Charity Night, hosted by Carter Cruz's. Well-dressed guests stepped out of sleek cars, their laughter mingling with the click of photographers' cameras on the red carpet. Maya's nerves buzzed, but the weight of the gold wristband engraved with JC in her purse anchored her resolve. She had no invitation, no credentials, only a burning need to reach James Carter for the sake of her unborn triplets, Ella, Marcus, and Lila. Keisha had coached her the night before, her voice firm over a shared pizza. "You're walking into a lion's den, Maya, but you're tougher than they are. Show them you belong." Her friend's words echoed as Maya took a deep breath, smoothing her curls, and slipped toward a side entrance where staff and less notable attendees entered. She politely greeted a distracted employee, checking a clipboard, blending into a group of caterers. Inside, the grand lobby shimmered with marble floors and a champagne fountain at its center. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over guests in tailored suits and glittering gowns, their conversations humming with wealth and influence. Maya felt the sting of their glances, her presence as an uninvited outsider amplifying the societal barriers she'd faced since discovering her pregnancy. Clutching her purse, she wove through the crowd, eyes scanning for James. The weight of her mission pressed against her chest. She wasn't just a single mother-to-be. She was a woman navigating a world quick to judge her for daring to demand answers from a powerful man. Her stomach churned not from morning sickness, but from the fear of being caught. Servers glided by with trays of hors d'oeuvres, and a string quartet played softly from a small stage. Near a dais, surrounded by executives, she spotted James, his sharp black suit accentuating his tall frame. His blue eyes scanned the room, a polite smile, masking a tension she recognized from their cruise encounter. Her heart leapt, memories of their dance flooding back, but so did the sting of his disappearance. Steeling herself, Maya edged closer, avoiding security guards' vigilant eyes near the exits. She timed her approach for a moment, when James finished greeting an older man in a tuxedo. Her hand grazed his arm, and he turned, his expression shifting from casual politeness to shock as their eyes met. "Maya," he breathed, barely audible, his composure faltering. For a fleeting moment, she saw a flicker of warmth, perhaps even relief in his gaze. "James, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "It's about the cruise, something important." She reached into her purse, pulled out the wristband, and saw JC catching the light. His eyes widened, recognition clear, but before she could continue, a security guard in a tuxedo appeared at her side. "Miss, you need to step away," the guard said, his tone stern but professional. The chatter around them hushed guests turning to watch. Another guard joined, flanking her. Panic surged, but Maya pressed on. "James, please, I'm pregnant," she blurted, her voice shaking. "It's yours." The words hung in the air, drawing gasps from nearby onlookers. James's face paled, but the guards moved in, one gripping her arm to guide her toward the exit. "I've tried reaching you," she called, twisting to keep him in sight. "Emails, calls. Nobody helped." The crowd thickened, blocking James from view. His conflicted expression, the last thing she saw as she was hustled out. The cool night air hit her like a slap as the guards escorted her to the side entrance. Photographers on the red carpet ignored her, focused on celebrities. But the humiliation burned. She stood safely away, catching her breath, when a young man with a corporate lanyard approached from behind a marble pillar. "Are you okay?" he asked, his tone cautious but kind. "I'm an assistant for Mr. Carter. I saw what happened." Maya's pulse steadied slightly. "I need him to know about the baby's triplets," she said, showing him the wristband. "I'm not here to cause trouble." He nodded, scribbling on a business card. "I'll pass on your message, but don't get your hopes up. He's private." Before she could thank him, he glanced at the lingering guards and slipped back inside. Maya clutched the card, her hands trembling. The gala's lights faded as she walked away, the wristband heavy in her purse. She'd faced rejection and judgment before, but this felt personal, a reminder of the chasm between her world and James's. Yet his shocked expression gave her hope he'd recognized her, and the wristband tied them together. Keisha's voice rang. "You're tougher than they are." Maya straightened, vowing to keep fighting. Her babies deserved a father who knew them, and she deserved answers no matter how high the corporate walls stood. James Carter stood alone in his penthouse office, the Chicago skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. The chaos of the charity gala still lingered in his mind, particularly when Maya Thompson's voice cut through the crowd, her eyes pleading, as she held up the gold wristband engraved with JC. Her words, "I'm pregnant. It's yours," echoed, stirring a mix of shock and something more profound, a warmth he hadn't felt since their night on the cruise. Yet, as he gazed at the city below, doubt gnawed at him, rooted in a past that had taught him to trust no one. The wristband, a gift from his late father, was a painful reminder of how easily personal connections could be exploited. A flashback pulled him back to the years that shaped his guarded heart, revealing why Maya's reappearance thrilled and terrified him. 5 years earlier, James had been a rising star in Carter Cruises, thrust into leadership at 27 after his father's sudden death from a heart attack. The company, built from his father's modest shipping business, was a legacy of grit and ambition, but it came with a target on James's back. His pale blue eyes, once open and trusting, had hardened after a high-profile scandal rocked his world. A former girlfriend, Claire, had claimed he fathered her child, a story that exploded in the tabloids. Eager to do right, James had offered support only to discover through a DNA test that the child wasn't his. Claire's motives, money and fame, left him humiliated, his trust shattered. The media frenzy painted him as a naive heir, and his board of advisors, led by the cunning Richard, tightened their grip, urging him to filter all personal interactions through them to avoid further liabilities. Since then, James had lived behind a fortress of caution. His wealth insulated him, but it also attracted opportunists, gold diggers, schemers, even disloyal employees, leaking company secrets for profit. He buried himself in work, expanding Carter Cruises into a global empire, but the loneliness weighed heavily. The cruise where he met Maya was meant to be an escape, a rare chance to blend into the crowd without the shadow of his title. That night, dancing with Maya, her laughter genuine and her eyes free of calculation, he felt a spark of authenticity he hadn't known in years. Her story of winning a ticket, told with a shy grin, disarmed him. Their kiss under the moonlight felt like a moment outside his guarded world. Still, a late-night call about a boardroom crisis, Richard's urgent summons about a rival's takeover bid, forced him to leave abruptly without leaving contact details. Maya's sudden reappearance at the gala, pregnant with triplets, stirred a storm of emotions. James wanted to believe her, to recapture the ease of their cruise night, but Claire's betrayal loomed large. Had Maya known who he was all along? Was the wristband left behind in his haste to depart a convenient prop for a scam? His advisors, especially Richard, had already dismissed her as another opportunist, claiming her emails were suspiciously vague. They'd buried her messages citing protocol, leaving James unaware of her attempts to reach him until the gala confrontation. yet her voice trembling with urgency, and the wristband's familiar glint challenged his skepticism. She didn't seem like Claire. Her eyes held a raw honesty, a desperation that felt personal, not calculated. James paced his office, the city lights blurring, as he wrestled with his next move. He'd instructed his assistant Tom to pass on Maya's message, but he hesitated to reach out directly. What if she was telling the truth? The thought of fathering triplets was overwhelming, yet it sparked a flicker of hope, a chance at a family something his wealth couldn't buy. But trust was a risk he'd learned to avoid. He'd ordered a private investigator to look into Maya's background, hoping for clarity. But the decision left him uneasy. Was he betraying the one person who'd made him feel alive, or protecting himself from another public betrayal? The memory of Maya's face at the gala, determined, vulnerable, clutching the wristband, haunted him, urging him to act before his fears pushed her away for good. Maya Thompson stepped into the gleaming conference room of Carter Cruz's Chicago headquarters, her heart pounding as she faced the long table lined with stern-faced lawyers. The floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a sprawling cityscape, but the room's cold fluorescence made her feel exposed. Her modest blazer and skirt, pressed carefully that morning, contrasted with the tailored suits of the legal team, whose polished demeanor underscored the chasm between her world and theirs. Clutching her worn purse, which held the gold wristband engraved with JC, and her ultrasound images, Maya drew strength from thoughts of her unborn triplets, Ella, Marcus, and Lila. Her best friend Keisha had prepped her over coffee the previous night, her voice fierce. "They'll try to intimidate you, Maya, but you're fighting for your kids. Stand tall." James Carter sat across the table, his posture rigid, his blue eyes avoiding hers. The guarded expression on his face stung, a far cry from the warmth of their cruise night. Two lawyers flanked him, an older man with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses, and a sharp-eyed woman with a sleek bun. The silver-haired lawyer spoke first, his tone detached but courteous. "Ms. Thompson, thank you for coming. You claim Mr. Carter is the father of your unborn children. Please provide the specifics." Maya's throat tightened, the weight of their scrutiny heavy. She glanced at James, hoping for a flicker of recognition, but his face remained impassive. "I won a ticket for a Carter Cruises trip," she began, her voice steady, despite her nerves. "James and I met at a party on the ship. We danced, talked, and spent time together. He left abruptly, and I couldn't find him afterward." She reached into her purse, pulling out the wristband. "This was left at the bar where we danced. It's engraved with JC. I didn't know who he was until I researched it later." The woman lawyer leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "How do we know it was Mr. Carter you met?" Maya held up the wristband, its gold catching the light. "This is his?" she asked, looking at James. He glanced at it briefly, his jaw twitching. "It looks familiar," he said quietly, offering no more. The questioning grew relentless. The lawyers probed her personal life, her retail job, finances, and past relationships, their questions laced with skepticism that felt like a judgment on her modest background. "Have you made claims like this before?" the woman asked, her tone implying doubt. Maya's cheeks warmed, but she held her ground. "No, I'm here because I'm pregnant with triplets, and James is their father. I want him to know." Keisha's words echoed in her mind, bolstering her resolve. The lawyers exchanged glances, then slid a folder across the table. The silver-haired man said, "We've arranged a DNA test with a reputable lab. Sign these forms and we'll proceed. If the results confirm paternity, we'll discuss next steps." Maya nodded, her hand steady as she signed, though the clinical process made her feel like a case number, not a mother-to-be. "I'm not hiding anything," she said, meeting James's eyes. "I've been honest from the start." A flicker of something guilt perhaps crossed his face before he looked away. He spoke, his voice low. "I didn't know about your attempts to contact me until recently. My team screens everything. Though in admission his words felt hollow, and Maya's frustration simmered. One evening had changed her life, yet he reduced it to a filtered email. The meeting ended abruptly, and the lawyers gathered their briefcases with practiced efficiency. Maya stood her legs shaky and paused to address James directly. "This isn't just about a test," she said softly. "It's about doing right by our children." He nodded, his expression unreadable, and the lawyers ushered her out. Maya leaned against the wall in the elevator, the city's hum distant below. Keisha met her outside, her embrace a lifeline. "You did well," Keisha said, her eyes fierce. "They can't ignore science." Days later, a call from the lab confirmed a 99% match. James was the father. Maya's relief was tinged with dread. The truth was out, but would it bring acknowledgement or more battles? She clutched the ultrasound images, vowing to fight on for her babies, no matter the corporate fortress she faced. Maya Thompson sat on her couch, the dim glow of a single lamp illuminating her Chicago apartment. The ultrasound images of her triplets, Ella Marcus and Lila, taped to the fridge, were a constant reminder of her fight, but a new fear gripped her. A plain, unmarked envelope slipped under her door the previous night and lay open on the coffee table. Its typed message was chilling. "Drop your demands or face severe legal and personal repercussions." Her hands trembled as she reread it, the words carrying a menace that made every creak in her hallway feel threatening. The gold wristband engraved with JC, her link to James Carter, sat beside it, a symbol of hope and the chaos now enveloping her life. As a single mother-to-be, she'd already braced for societal judgment, but this overt threat felt like a direct attack on her and her unborn children. Her phone rang, jolting her from her thoughts. The caller ID read, "blocked number," and her heart raced, fearing another warning. Instead, a calm voice introduced itself. "Ms. Thompson, I'm calling on behalf of James Carter. He'd like to meet at your residence today." Maya hesitated, the idea of James stepping into her modest world, both daunting and oddly reassuring. "All right," she said softly. "Late afternoon works." After hanging up, she called Keisha, her best friend, whose voice steadied her nerves. "Be careful," Maya Keisha warned. "But if he's coming to you, that's a start. Show him that letter. He needs to know what's happening." Keisha's support, rooted in their shared history of navigating life's challenges, gave Maya the courage to face the meeting. Her thoughts churned as she tidied her apartment, straightening a blanket, stacking bills. The stigma of being a single mother weighed heavily, amplified by whispers from neighbors who judged her growing belly. She imagined her triplets facing a world quick to question their legitimacy if James remained absent. When a knock came, she opened the door to find James, his tailored coat slightly rumpled, his blue eyes weary. "May I come in?" he asked, his voice quiet. She nodded, stepping back, and he surveyed her small living space, his gaze lingering on the ultrasound images. The room's chipped paint and worn furniture contrasted with his corporate world, but he didn't flinch. "I'm sorry for showing up like this." James began, rubbing his neck. "I needed to talk without lawyers hovering." His eyes caught the threatening letter on the table, and his brow furrowed. "What's this?" Maya's voice trembled as she explained. "Someone slid it under my door last night. It's not the first threat. Your people want me to stay quiet and sign NDAs. One of them warned me in person after the gala." James's face darkened as he scanned the letter, his lips tightening. "This is unacceptable," he said, his tone low but fierce. "I had an investigator look into you, your background, your finances. I needed to be sure you weren't like others who've tried to exploit me." He paused, regret flickering in his eyes. "You've been honest, Maya. I know that now." Her anger flared, tempered by his sincerity. "So you thought I was a scammer?" she asked, crossing her arms. That's easier than believing I'm carrying your children. James winced, looking away. I've been burned before a public scandal lies about paternity. It made me paranoid. But you're different. He set the letter down. This came from someone close to me. Likely, Richard, my advisor. He's been forging shipping contracts, funneling money through a shell company to weaken the company and force me out. He's using your pregnancy to create a scandal to distract from his betrayal. Maya's breath caught the pieces clicking. Richard's cold stare at the gala and the dismissive tone of James's team pointed to a calculated plot. I can't raise my kids under threats. She said, her hand resting on her belly. I'm already fighting whispers about being a single mom. I need safety, James. He stepped closer, his voice softening. I'll handle it. Richard's gone too far and I'm digging into his actions. No one threatens you or our babies. His use of ours sent a jolt through her, a sign he was beginning to accept responsibility. Keisha's advice rang in her ears. Hold him accountable, but give him a chance to prove himself. Maya nodded, her resolve firm. We're in this together now, she said. But you need to show me I can trust you. James met her gaze, determination replacing his earlier doubt. I will. He promised a vow that felt like the first step toward bridging their worlds. Maya Thompson stood beside James Carter in the sleek elevator of Carter Cruises' Chicago headquarters, the hum of its ascent mirroring the tension in her chest. The threatening letter, the DNA test, confirming James as the father of her triplets, and his recent vow to protect her, brought them to a boardroom where James would confront a brewing corporate conspiracy. Maya's hand rested lightly on her belly, where Ella, Marcus, and Lila grew, grounding her resolve. Keisha's best friend had texted her that morning. You're walking into their world, Maya. Show them you're unbreakable. The words fortified her against the societal whispers, judgments about her as a single mother that had shadowed her since the pregnancy began. The elevator doors opened to a hushed corridor, where a small crowd of executives parted, their faces etched with worry or suspicion. James, his jaw set, led Maya toward the boardroom's frosted glass doors. Inside, a long table was surrounded by men and women in impeccable suits, their murmurs falling silent as James strode in, Maya at his side. At the table's far end sat Richard, the advisor, James suspected of orchestrating the threats against Maya and forging shipping contracts to siphon funds. Richard's cold stare met Maya's, a flicker of disdain that made her skin prickle, but she stood tall, refusing to shrink under his scrutiny. Richard spoke first, his tone controlled. James, we need answers. Fraudulent contracts have cost us a major investor, and rumors of a personal scandal. His eyes flicked to Maya, are damaging our reputation. James's voice cut through, sharp and unwavering. Enough. He tossed a folder onto the table, its contents fanning photocopied emails, signature pages, and financial records. These show a shell company funneling profits from our shipping deals. Someone in this room forged the signatures dated to a time when they were conveniently abroad. His gaze locked on Richard, whose face paled. I had an investigator cross-check our records. The trail leads to you, Richard. The room erupted in murmurs. Maya crossed her arms over her slight baby bump, feeling the weight of skeptical stares from older executives, their expressions hinting at discomfort with her presence. A younger board member, a woman in a navy blazer, leaned forward. Can you prove this sabotage, James? He opened another folder, revealing discrepancies in contract dates and bank transfers. Richard set up the shell company to weaken Carter Cruises, hoping to force me out. He spread rumors about my personal life to distract from his theft. Maya's heart pounded. Richard's threats, the letter under her door, were part of his plan to discredit James by painting her as a scandal. Richard bluffed, his voice rising. This is absurd, James. You're letting personal issues cloud your judgment. But James remained steady. You made me doubt Maya and forced me to see her as a threat when you betrayed me. He turned to Maya, his eyes softening. She's carrying my children triplets. There's no scandal here, just a truth I should have faced sooner. The admission stunned the room, a few faces softening, while others remained stone. Maya's chest swelled with pride. James's public acknowledgement was a shield against the gossip that had haunted her. An older board member rapped the table for silence. We'll form a committee to investigate these documents immediately. James, you're still CEO, but tread carefully. The press is circling. James nodded, his face grim. I'll handle the media myself. My children won't be a headline. He signaled to the security guards by the door. Escort Richard out. We'll be pressing charges. Richard's protests echoed as guards led him away, the room exhaling in relief. Maya felt a surge of admiration for James's courage, starkly contrasting with his earlier hesitation. James's hand brushed her back as they left the boardroom, a quiet gesture of solidarity. In a private office, he turned to her, weariness in his eyes. Thank you for standing with me, he said. I should have done this sooner. Maya nodded, her voice soft. You did right by our kids today. That matters. The societal pressures, whispers about her legitimacy, the weight of navigating James's elite world felt lighter with him by her side. The battle wasn't over, but they faced it together, their trust growing amidst the corporate storm. Maya Thompson's heart raced as she hurried alongside James Carter through the sterile corridors of a Chicago hospital, the fluorescent lights casting stark shadows. A late morning call from her obstetrician's office had upended their fragile, calm warning of a potential issue with her triplets, Ella, Marcus, and Lila, detected during a routine scan. Her hand gripped James's tightly, his steady presence a lifeline, as nurses and doctors bustled past, their voices muffled by the roar of her panic. What if her babies were in danger? The thought of losing them after weeks of fighting to secure their future made her stomach churn. Keisha's text from earlier. Stay strong. Maya, you've got this, echoed in her mind, but fear threatened to drown her resolve. They reached the maternity wing, where a nurse with a sympathetic smile led them to an ultrasound room. The soft beep of machinery filled the air, and Maya recognized Dr. Fletcher, her obstetrician, whose calm demeanor had guided her through early appointments. Today, the doctor's expression was serious, her eyes scanning a chart. Thank you for coming quickly, Dr. Fletcher said, her voice hushed. The routine scan showed a possible concern, restricted growth, or reduced fluid in one of the triplets. We need a closer look. Maya's breath hitched, her hand tightening on James's. He squeezed back, his jaw tense, but his gaze steady, offering a silent promise. I'm here. She climbed onto the examination table, the paper crinkling beneath her, and lifted her shirt, exposing the slight curve of her belly. Dr. Fletcher applied the ultrasound gel, and its cold touch made Maya flinch. James stood close, his hand resting on her shoulder, his warmth grounding her as the screen flickered to life. 3 tiny shapes appeared, their outlines more defined than in earlier scans. Maya's chest tightened with each pause in the doctor's movements, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. She imagined Ella's giggle, Marcus's curious eyes, Lila's tiny hands, dreams she'd nurtured to cope with the societal whispers about her pregnancy. Dr. Fletcher moved the probe, her voice calm but measured. We're checking heartbeat patterns, fluid levels, and placental health. Every second stretched the room's silence, broken only by the machine's hum. Doctor, Fletcher's face softened after what felt like an eternity, and a sigh escaped her lips. It appears the initial alert was a misreading, she said, relief evident. All 3 babies have stable heartbeats and the fluid levels are within acceptable ranges. We'll monitor closely, but there's no immediate danger. Maya's shoulders sagged, tears prickling her eyes as relief flooded her. She turned to James, who exhaled shakily, his hand brushing her cheek. "Thank you, doctor," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We're so grateful." Dr. Fletcher smiled. "Keep up with your prenatal vitamins, Maya. Rest and reduce stress. Those babies need you strong." Maya nodded, a shaky laugh escaping. "I'll try," she said, knowing stress was a constant shadow. Maya and James paused in the hospital's quiet hallway near a window overlooking a courtyard where trees swayed gently. The scare had stripped away their defenses, leaving raw vulnerability. "I thought we might lose them," James admitted, his voice low, his eyes distant. It made everything clear. "None of the corporate mess matters. Next to them, next to you." Maya's heart softened, his words echoing her fears. "I keep picturing their faces." She set her hand on her belly. "But I'm scared, James. People judge me, assume I'm after your money. I want our kids to have a dad who cares." Her voice wavered, the weight of public scrutiny heavy. James turned to her, his blue eyes earnest. "That night on the cruise, I felt real for the first time in years. I was scared to trust you, but I love you, Maya. I want to be there for you and our kids." The confession, raw and unpolished, made her chest ache with hope. Tears welled as she replied, "I love you too. I've been so afraid you'd disappear again." They stood close, shoulders touching, the moment sealing their bond. Later, Keisha visited Maya's apartment, bringing baby books and suggesting names like Zora or Malcolm to honor their heritage. "We'll throw you a shower," Keisha said, grinning. "You're not doing this alone." With James's promise and her friend's support, Maya felt ready to face the future, their love a shield against the storms still to come. Maya Thompson stood on the deck of a sleek yacht, the warm sea breeze brushing her curls as the vessel glided through sparkling waves. Beside her, James Carter pushed a stroller holding their triplets, Ella, Marcus, and Lila, their tiny faces peaceful under the bright afternoon sky. The yacht, one of Carter Cruises' smaller vessels, was a far cry from the massive liner where their story began, but its gentle sway felt like a promise of calm after months of turmoil. The Chicago skyline had faded into memory, replaced by the open sea's endless horizon, symbolizing the new life they were building together. Maya's hand rested on the stroller, her heart full as she glanced at James. His blue eyes softened by a smile that hadn't left his face since the babies arrived. Months earlier, the corporate scandal orchestrated by James's advisor Richard had threatened to unravel everything. His forged contracts and leaked rumors had shaken Carter Cruises, but James's transparency, exposing the fraud and acknowledging Maya's pregnancy, had turned the tide. Initially ravenous for gossip, the media moved on to fresher headlines, thanks to James's swift press releases and legal action against Richard. Maya, once haunted by societal whispers about her legitimacy as a single mother-to-be, now stood proudly beside James, their partnership a shield against judgment. Their story, born from a chance cruise encounter, had weathered betrayal threats and a health scare, emerging stronger for it. They'd moved into a secure home outside Chicago, a spacious yet cozy space where Maya's cultural traditions blended with James's resources. Her mother's recipes, jerk chicken and cornbread, filled the kitchen, while James ensured a nursery equipped with everything the triplets needed. Keisha, Maya's steadfast friend, had co-hosted a vibrant baby shower with laughter and music from their shared heritage, grounding Maya in her community. Keisha had said, "You've got a village girl," her eyes shining as she gifted a quilt for the babies. The triplets, now 3 months old, were a whirlwind of sleepless nights and joyful moments, their coups a reminder of why Maya had fought so hard. James leaned against the railing, his hand brushing Maya's. "I keep thinking about that cruise," he said, his voice soft. "One night changed everything. Maya smiled, the memory of their dance under the moonlight vivid. "It was crazy, magical chaos," she replied. "I thought you'd vanished forever, but here we are." He chuckled, glancing at the stroller. "Ella's got your smile, you know." Maya's heart warmed, her fingers tracing the stroller's edge. "And Marcus has your stubborn chin." Their laughter mingled with the seagulls' calls, a moment of peace after the storm. The yacht's deck sparkled under the sun, a fitting stage for their new beginning. James had suggested this day trip to escape the lingering press attention, a chance to breathe as a family. "I love you," he said, his voice steady, the words carrying the weight of their journey. "You showed me what matters." Maya's eyes glistened. "I love you too. We built this together." Their hands entwined, the triplets' soft breaths anchoring them. The sea stretched ahead, a canvas of possibility, proving that even the wildest twists of fate could lead to a lasting bond. Hey, if this story of Maya and James's journey from a cruise fling to a family warmed your heart, drop a comment below. Tell us where you're reading from, or what moment hit you hardest. Give it a like if you're rooting for their happy ending, and subscribe to more tales of love and triumph at our channel. Your support keeps these stories sailing. Their dynamic wasn't flawless, navigating their different worlds. Her modest roots, his corporate empire, sparked occasional disagreements, like debates over baby names or balancing work and family. But each challenge felt like a step toward unity. James attended prenatal appointments, marveling at the triplets' heartbeats, while Maya taught him to cook her mother's recipes, their kitchen filled with laughter and spice. As the yacht sailed on, Maya leaned into James, the rhythmic thrum of the engine, a backdrop to their shared future. They'd faced corporate conspiracies, societal scrutiny, and their doubts, but love had won. With Ella, Marcus, and Lila, they were ready for whatever came next, their family a beacon on a new horizon.